when things started to go like south with the 6, like what happened? Like what did you start to feel personally? Like what was the catalyst? And what?
Well, I would say I've actually drawn this. Again, I'm sorry, I'm a little tipsy, so I don't know if I'm using this properly. Line of demarcation. The last moment that the 6 was actually fun was the day we recreated the Different World Open. And we brought back the cast of A Different World, and we ran that, and social media, you know, at least Black Twitter, went crazy, loved it, right? That was the last thing that we did that felt like it was us. So bottom line is, John Skipper wanted to take his and hers and put it on SportsCenter. Now that I have the benefit of hindsight, I realize that SportsCenter wasn't the place for it, and as a society, we're not in the time for it. I think there's a lot of things that led to the demise of the show. People like to simplify it and narrow it down to one tweet. That wasn't what it was. There's a change in management, and much like any team, if you have a change in management, that regime has a different vision, or they didn't draft you in the first round, so to speak. So there was a change in management, number one. So therefore, a change in vision and different way of wanting to do things. That's one. But even before that, I think the biggest mistake we made was, like tomorrow, if it was pizza with Julie, okay? Like, what happened to the drinking? It's like you start to introduce food slowly but surely, and now you got the whole meal going, right? We went from a Friday traditional SportsCenter, and that following Monday, it was 2 people having a daytime talk show at 6. That's too sudden of a change for such an iconic brand. And the viewer is very routine oriented, right?
Right.
So I wish we would have kind of eased into doing his and hers. And then the truth of the matter is, it's like, you know, we might have just been a show out of time. As in, like, look, where we are as a society, as a country, what was going on in sports in terms of the intersection of sports and society, vis-a-vis Colin Kaepernick, the Colin Kaepernick-led protest during the anthem. I don't think that audience, and, you know, imagine the demographic for that audience. I don't think that audience was receptive to two black people being unapologetically black the way we were. Let's just call it what it was. Again, so suddenly, like if I had to do all over again, I wish we would have just kind of like hosted SportsCenters every now and then and integrated some his and hers segments along the way. But I think when they asked us to do it and said, yeah, do what you're doing at noon on ESPN2, do it on at 6 o'clock, and we're like, word, you sure? I think they looked at the skits. Right. I think they looked at the cute stuff, the fun stuff. I don't think they understood or appreciated the types of conversations that Jamel and I were having and how bold and unapologetic those conversations were. And so I don't think they understood that that's what they were going to be introducing to the 6 p.m. audience. But also it goes back to just the lack of chemistry with the staff and they didn't know how to produce us. And we were new to that SportsCenter culture.
Right.
So it wasn't one particular thing. It wasn't one person's fault. It just was a bad fit. It simply put, it was a bad fit. And I'll be honest with you, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not rambling, but I've lost track of my sense of time because of these 3.
Yeah, that's the point of the show.
Because y'all might have stopped rolling for we were out of tape.
We're all, everyone's left.
No, but I think it's just, I have such a clear, to quote the great American poet Eddie Vedder, I see things clearer now that it's in my rearview mirror. And I can appreciate what happened and why it happened in hindsight. Whereas if I'd have done your show, which I couldn't have because I wasn't trying to up the bag, but if I'd have done your show 6 months ago, I wouldn't have had this perspective on what happened and why. You know what I mean? Like, so, I'm free of, when I say I'm free, I'm not, most people leave ESPN and say, oh, I'm free of the shackles, or I'm free of the restrictions of Disney and ESPN. I can say what I want to say. I never felt muted, at least on camera. I wasn't going to be stupid and say whatever off camera and rip the company or anything like that and, again, compromise, you know, my contract or even just, I have love for the company. I still do. I'm free from any bitterness or resentment
right.
that I felt months ago because of where I am now. Because without it, I don't get here.
Exactly.
And that's the journey.
You mentioned, though, that you felt that they got what they wanted when they muted you. When did you start?
Is that what I said?
Yeah. Oh, I did my research.
Aggressive.
No, but then they started having less and less interaction between the two of you. When did you start to feel that they do not want us to be Michael and Jemele?
Let's see. White supremacist tweet was the summer. Suspension, I feel like, was September.
Well, let's.
Jamel left in what, January?
Let's dive into.
I feel like it was fall winter 2017. I don't remember the exact date or show or month even, but it was fall winter 17, where it was just like, just from a production standpoint, like, okay, you got to understand, His and Hers was our show on every level. Okay, from soup to nuts, it was our show. Our faces were on it. Our likenesses were on it. We picked every line of the rundown. I wrote the lower thirds.
Wow.
Okay, like we did everything. We picked the B-roll. We picked the topics. We determined how long we wanted to talk about something. We tell the director, do not go to break. We ain't finished here. Like we ran His and Hers, and the staff came to understand that was the way for us to be most successful. Okay. And I didn't write the lower thirds myself. I'm sorry. We all, but you know what I'm saying? Like it was. I don't want to exclude. I'm sorry, anybody else.
No one else.
No, my point is, I don't want to say I did it all myself.
Yeah,
my point is,
I get
like,
it. You're involved. You're involved.
Right. And so, but me especially, because Jemele, this is the good cop. I was the kind of the bad cop, right? So I was maniacal about the details of SportsCenter. That's my point in saying all this. So when I got to SportsCenter, I did the same thing. SportsCenter, Michael and Jemele, it's our show, right? This is what I want to lead with. This is what I want to talk to. I'm writing my own copy. That's a given. Nobody's writing my copy for me. Okay, we're not doing this segment. This segment's going to be 30 seconds. This segment's going to be a minute. I'm in every detail. And you know, at that place, man, like producers don't take too kindly to the talent taking ownership, which I think that's the way it needs to be if you're going to have a good show. So anyway, once that stopped, and once it was clear that we weren't making editorial decisions anymore, and not just that, where the content was not showcasing our chemistry, but rather putting us in the traditional anchor box, the two anchor box of, well, you're over there introducing this package, and I'm over here doing this interview. It's like, now I was like, wait a second, this isn't what we signed up for.
Yeah, you weren't together.
Yeah, so they got what they want. That is an aggressive statement. I think a lot of it just had to do with the noise. And at that point, there were just so many people perpetuating and peddling so many false narratives about our show, until I think whenever I said that, I was just in a place of, I just got sick of the bullshit.
I'm sure.
You know, from the outside, inside, wherever it was originating from, because I know what I put into it. I know what we put into it. I know the thoughtfulness that we approach these show with. Like, a lot of people started writing shit as if we just bum rushed the studio, like we taking this bitch over. Like no, we didn't just go take over SportsCenter. We were asked to take over SportsCenter. Okay, we were given that platform, which we appreciated, and we didn't operate independent of any kind of supervision. Like, we had producers and respected producers working with us. So I just got frustrated with the people that kind of acted like we would just run amok.
Yeah.
You know, that frustrated me, because now your commentary is my work product. If you don't like me or Jemele, or you don't like us, or even if you just don't like us at 6 o'clock, okay, I could deal with that. But the false narratives about what we were doing and what we were talking about and how we were approaching SportsCenter, as if we didn't appreciate the responsibility that was bestowed upon us.
Right.
I rejected that.
It's very ignorant. Now, I got to ask you, I mean, of course, how was it when Jemele did have the tweet about the president?
How was it?
How was it?
It was wild.
How was it for you? How was it watching her deal with it? What was the inside like?
Watching her deal with it, I mean, there wasn't much to watch from the standpoint of, like, she's just a rock, man. Like, it was never, you know, I don't have any stories of her struggling or crying on my.
No, I wouldn't think you would.
No. I'm not saying you were looking for that. I guess what I'm saying is just like she was just even keel the whole time. You know what I mean? It was never any wavering on her part or anything like that. So watching her was just watching her usual strength and grace or whatever. Excuse me. Got me burping and shit. Going through it for me,
yeah.
no, it was challenging, because I felt like You know what, Julie? I felt like I was, on one hand, I felt like I was getting this credit, you know? I was getting these pats on the back, you know, that kind of felt undeserved. You know, like, way to stand with Jemele. I'm like, well, what's the alternative? You know what I'm saying? Like, I always thought that people focus way more on the act of the tweet itself than the sentiment and the factual basis of the tweet. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, are we going to talk about the fact that it's true?
Yeah.
Or are we just going to focus on the fact that it was tweeted? As, you know, and that anybody, like, so she tweeted that water is wet. So we pissed that somebody said water's wet, you know? But for me, it was like, it was a tough spot from the standpoint of, well, we have a shared sensibility, and she's my partner, but I had a job to do, a family to support, a contract to honor, and, you know, even though she had kind of like emotionally and then eventually literally moved on from the show, I was still trying to press forward and continue doing the show to the best of my ability. Up until March 9th of 2018, I was, until they told me I wasn't doing it anymore, I was doing the best Sports Center I could. Whether the writing was on the wall, the internet, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, I was like, I'm gonna do this show till they tell me I'm not. And, you know, because that's just kind of like my nature. I try to make things work even when they're not destined to work. And like I said earlier, I'm glad it didn't. It's all good. Like you know, like, even if I felt like I deserved better, they didn't owe me anything else. And so I got paid. I had benefits.
You had many experiences.
I had great experiences that got me sitting there having Hennessy and lemonade with you.
Okay, and yeah, you've made it now.